Hello everyone, I'm Duncan. I'm stuck with a very unpleasant feeling lately. I used to have a very different life. And I really miss those times. It may sound a bit selfish, but I really miss those days. Because when I was a young boy, I would just go to a friend's house after school, and then I would call my mom and said, "Hey mom, can I have lunch here?" And she always said, "Yeah, of course, honey," because I was already there. She couldn't say no again. It was a truly carefree life. And I really miss that, because now I'm stuck with a very different feeling. I can't turn on the news again without being bombarded by a series of concerning issues. Climate change, rising sea levels, war, the loss of biodiversity, and even the price of a single beer is now more than €3. I mean, these are real problems, big challenges that my generation needs to deal with. Or at least, that's what I'm hearing all the time. And when I open LinkedIn, it seems like everyone has come up with a solution to create impact, to make a contribution. How can I do that too? It leaves me wondering, how can I make an impact? And where do I begin? And can my efforts truly make a difference? It feels incredibly overwhelming. I feel responsible, and at the same time, I also feel powerless. But luckily, I think I found a way to deal with this feeling. Because recently, I went to an SDG conference in Oosterhout. And Oosterhout may not ring a bell for you. It's not a real prominent dot on the map of the Netherlands. But the SDGs, they are probably more familiar. Because they are standing for the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Big, ambitious goals, set by the UN in 2015 to provide us all with a guideline for a more sustainable and better life together. Great. So, of course, I wanted to go to that conference. And I joined over 200 individuals, each making their unique contributions towards a better world. And at the start of the conference, a remarkable man took the stage. The light slightly dimmed. And I look at this big, friendly giant. And he really took me on a journey. "Close your eyes, everyone," he said. "And imagine that you're standing in front of the most cherished place on earth for you." And in my mind, I stood in front of my house in Oosterhout. And he asked me, "Imagine that your parents and your grandparents are watching this place. What would they see? What would they observe? And what has changed? And what would your children and your grandchildren say about this place? What will change for them?" And I felt the importance of taking responsibility for our current situation and, of course, our future generations. But I also thought, whoa, this man has a clear vision for himself, how he can make an impact. And how can I do that too? I also thought back of a few years when I was just hanging out with some friends, and you know how it goes, you discuss things like moving in together or maybe a new job. And then all of a sudden, the whole conversation shifted to something called Ethereum or Datcoin or Dogecoin. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it. And I only thought, what are they talking about? I looked across the table, looking for eye contact with someone else who seemed equally lost. And inside, I was eager to understand and perhaps even get involved with Bitcoin, but I didn't know where to begin. And I had that same feeling watching this remarkable man. Where can I make a beginning? And after the big friendly giant, a lady took the stage. And she was invited to share her dream for the Netherlands in 2030 with us. And she described this beautiful city, filled with trees, where subways would run underground and everything was accessible by foot or by bike. And she told us that in order to realize this scenario, we must change our behavior. And I understand, of course, the importance of her message, but changing behavior is not easy. I mean, I've tried running before, and in the beginning I was doing really well. I ran almost 10K after 3 weeks. I even bought those expensive running gear, so I went to the local sports store, and the salesperson even asked, "Hey Duncan, what is your goal? What do you want to achieve?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to run a marathon." Yeah, well, he got something for that. So he came from the back with, of course, the best running shoes and a shirt that prevented shaving, the best of the best. And I bought it all. But after 3 weeks, it rained. Once. And I thought, yeah, well, I'm not going to run in the rain, right? So I will go the next day. But the next day, I found myself tucked under the covers, warm and cozy, and I decided to postpone my run for one more day. Bottom line, I couldn't change my behavior long enough to really make an impact, to achieve that goal. It was just too hard. But she had a point. And afterwards, she asked us, "Okay, tell your neighbor and discuss with each other what kind of ways can you think of to make a positive impact." And I was sitting next to Monique, a smart woman, worked for a municipality, and we discussed all kinds of things that we came to think of to make an impact, like driving an electric vehicle, maybe vegetarian diet, or maybe solar panels. But do they really make you feel like you're making an impact, making a contribution? And where do I begin? And do we have to choose all of them? It felt a little bit like I was having dinner with my beautiful wife, Manon. And we go to this restaurant last week here in Breda. You know how it goes. You sit down, you order a glass of wine, you get the menu. But by the time she is able to make a decision, I already devoured 3 bread baskets. There are just too many options. And that feels incredibly overwhelming. And gets me thinking, can we really achieve those global goals? And how can I, as an individual, just Duncan, someone in their 30s, having other important life decisions about moving in together, having children, my career, the price of beer, how can I make a contributions? And I think I found a way to deal with this feeling. Because after the conference, I found myself sitting on my couch reading a book. And a friend had gave it to me and he said, "Duncan, read this. This will really help." And the book is called The Compound Effect, with a beautiful subtitle, "Jumpstart Your Income and Success." And it's all about achieving goals. And that triggered me, because don't we want to achieve those global goals together? Don't we want to make a positive impact, achieve sustainable success? So can't I learn from these personal success methods and use them to reach those global goals? The book describes a very simple method. So pay attention, everyone. You make a small step, you do it consistently, and you repeat it over a long period of time. One more time. You make a small step, you do it consistently, and you repeat it over a long period of time. And it sounds really simple, but it worked. At least for me it did. Because, to be honest, it is exactly the reason I am standing here on this stage tonight. 1 year ago, I started my own business again. And as a concept developer and project manager, I help companies with sustainability. But I also wanted to do something with public speaking. So I was having coffee with my former business coach, Odilia, and I was discussing my new business. And she asked me, "Duncan, what is your goal? And why did you start a new business again?" What do you want to achieve? And well, of course, I told her about the concept development, but I also shared my ambition to be a public speaker. And she said, "Whoa, Duncan, that's great. But how are you going to do that?" And I told her, "Yeah, well, I probably make a video about my ambitions and tell everyone on LinkedIn that I want to be a public speaker, but I will post it after the summer holiday." And she said, "Why don't you post it this week?" And then she had me. So I posted that same video the next day. And that's how I got here. Because more than 20,000 people viewed that video. And after multiple stages, a training with a speaker coach, a collaboration with an agency, I'm standing right here. So for me, it worked. And that got me thinking, can't I learn from all these commercial success methods that we have in the world to reach those global goals? And of course, maybe it is a possibility. And changing behavior is taking small steps consistently. What I shouldn't have done was bought those expensive running shoes to run a marathon. No, what I should have done was I would just go outside, run 5 minutes with the shoes I've already owned. And the next day, 5 minutes again. And after that, maybe 10 minutes, until I reached my goal. And doing these steps consistently over a long period of time will give you the feeling that you're creating an impact. And I already see this with another small step too. Because recently I turned 30, and like I said, normally I was a bit more of an egoist, so I would ask stuff for myself, like DJ gear, turntables, speakers. But this year I wanted to make a difference. So I asked everyone for a small donation. And for me, one of the global goals I want to make a contribution to is restoration of nature, persevere of biodiversity. I believe it's really important that we maintain the nature standard we have at the moment. And I wish everyone could see what I have seen around the world, the beautiful things we have. So what did I do? I asked everyone for €2.50 and protecting 1 square meter of rainforest in Costa Rica. And thanks to the compound effect, one small step, but just a lot of them, made us realize that we are protecting now over 200 square meters of rainforest after just one birthday. And I'm going to do this every year. So imagine how much rainforest we can protect when I'm turning 60. And you can do this too. I mean, Bojan Slat didn't start his mission to clean up the plastic soup with 100 million in investment right away. No. He first wrote a thesis. And then he made a prototype. And after that, he received a couple of million to make it actually happen. And now he is making a difference. He started with an idea and a goal, with one small step. And you can make this happen as well. And it gives me a feeling that I can deal with these overwhelming thoughts of how can I make an impact. It helps me to create a positive way, a positive movement. And today we are going to do that as well. So I invite you all. Stand up. Great. That's already a first small step. Now, tell your neighbor, what is bothering you the most? What problem does really concern you? And then ask him or her, how can you make a small step to make a little bit of impact tomorrow? Because that's how it can be done. And why not?